Welcome to another episode of Meal Prep Monday. I'm your host, Allison Schaff. Today, we are talking about efficiency, and more specifically, efficiency when you are doing your meal prep and how to batch things to be more efficient. This topic idea actually came from one of you. So I put out a post on Instagram and asked for thoughts on ideas for future episodes. And someone said, literally all they said was one word, efficiency. And I'm running with it because this, if you have listened to any of our past episodes, you might know that efficiency is a topic that I love to talk about. And so that really got my mind going down that direction. And I right now have this planned out to be 3 different episodes on efficiency. Today we'll talk efficiency in meal prep. We'll have one on efficiency and kind of just batching in general with meals. And then the third one is efficiency that is kind of more general, like in life. So yes, we'll talk about efficiency with meals, but also just how you can be kind of a more efficient person in life. So thank you. Shout out to the person who suggested efficiency as a topic. I'm going to get a few episodes out of it. And there are some episodes that we've done in the past on this topic. They were really far back in, I was looking them up. I think one of them was like episode number 4 or something. So we'll link some episodes too. If this is a topic that you really want to hear more about, I'll link some episodes we've had in the past that are similar, and you can go back and listen to those as well. But for today's episode, efficiency around meal prep. Of course, at Prep Dish, this is like the topic, right? Like we have spent the past 8+ years making meal prep and your meals as efficient as possible. Like that has been our goal in the service we provide. So how do we do that? And sometimes when I talk about this, I go into depth of like, how do we plan the meal plans? Because then that way, you know, if you use them, you can just understand it better, or use it like in the meals that aren't Prep Dish meals. Or, you know, I know sometimes some of you that are listening are not Prep Dish subscribers, and you can take the lessons we've learned in creating super efficient meal plans and use those in your own day-to-day meals. Today, though, I'm going to kind of take it from the stance of like, here's things you can do to make your meal prep time efficient, whether you are using the meal plans or not. And I should mention, if you're not using those plans, you can just head to prepdish.com/MPM. That's short for Meal Prep Monday, and try them out 2 weeks for free. Or if you just want us to send you like one plan. So the 2-week free trial is like, you get to try the trial as if you're a subscriber. But if you just want like one meal plan sent to you right now, you can text the number 33777 and the word meal prep, all one word, and we'll send you our kind of starter beginner meal plans. So if you just want one plan to try out really quick, just text that 33777 and the word meal prep. Okay, so when you're doing your meal prep, how can you make sure it's as efficient as possible? I would say, first of all, just like pause before you jump in and like think about it, right? Like, how can I jump in and make this as quick as possible? You know, I have a culinary background, and there's something in kitchens in the culinary field that's called mise en place, and it's basically like setting everything up. So how do you set everything up and do it to where it's efficient? So what I do first is like, look, what do I need to get done, right? Like what needs to get done over the next little session that I'm going to spend meal prepping. And then when I look at that list, what I start with is what is going to take a lot of time that needs to get started on right away. So, and before I even start setting up my workstation, I look at this, because if there is a spaghetti squash that needs to be baked, that might take, spaghetti squash can take an hour or even an hour and a half if it's like really large. So I want to start that right away. So I'm like, is there anything that needs to be started right away? Like preheating the oven, something like that. And you'll see on our meal plans, like this is how we set up the meal prep stations, or sessions, I should say, is that like, okay, whatever's going to take a long time, that's what you start with. And the top of the meal prep time, we always have you start with preheating the oven. So that way, when you get time and you need the oven, it's already preheated. So I would start with that, like what's going to take the most time, so you get that thing started first. And that can be like running in the background as you're then doing everything else. From there is really batching anything you're doing while you're doing your meal prep. So this starts as early as washing all of your vegetables. You can go to your sink, right? You wash like your zucchini and you go and you chop it. And then you're okay, that takes like, a minute or two. And then you go back and you're like, oh, I need to chop this bell pepper. And you go and you wash your bell pepper and then you go and you chop it. And then you're like, oh, I've got some onions to chop. Okay, you chop those. I guess you don't need to wash those. Not the best part to fit into the example. Okay, but you're done with the onions. And then you're like, okay, now I need to, chop the carrots. Let me go and wash the carrots. So you get my point. Like at this point, you've spent maybe, 7 minutes in total chopping. And you've spent, 90 seconds in total, like going to the sink and washing your vegetables. 90 seconds. Okay. Maybe that doesn't sound like a lot. You continue to do this and say you've got like 20 different vegetables to chop. Okay. Now you've wasted 6 minutes washing those 20 vegetables and you've spent 15 minutes chopping. Whereas if you would just like wash them all at once and spend 90 seconds all at once washing them and then being done with the washing part, and then the chopping's quicker too. So maybe instead of 15 minutes, you only spend 12 minutes. So by washing all of those vegetables at once, you've now saved, and I may lose track of the time I was talking about, but you may have saved like 4 minutes by doing that. But like, okay, 4 minutes, if you do that every week and you save 4 minutes times 50, like over the course of a year, you're really saving a lot of time and you're cutting down your meal prep time, right? Like if your meal prep time, if you can get it from 90 minutes to 60 minutes, maybe you're way more likely to stick with it over the long term. Like if it's 90 minutes every week, eventually like, I don't have time for this and you stop doing it. But maybe 60 minutes is that magic number where you're like, okay, if I only spend 60 minutes doing my meal prep, I'm now going to have this be like a habit that I stick with all year. And that's where our thinking is with our super fast plans. If you have not tried those, I highly recommend them because it's only an hour of prep. And we're like, if people can do an hour of prep, that is so doable that hopefully they can stick with it for the long term. Okay, so back to the examples of efficiencies. One of them, washing all of your vegetables at once. So anything that you're going to chop that day, get all of it washed. And I just get a large bowl. You can even fill your sink with water if your sink is clean, stick everything in there. I do a lot of times put a splash of vinegar. We have a blog post on this, but there's some research that a splash of vinegar helps to kind of break up anything that's on your vegetables, especially if it's not organic and there might be some chemicals on there. It kind of helps break it off. So wash those all at once, dry them all, put them on a big towel. I put them all by my cutting board. So then that way, again, we're setting ourselves up. So really set yourself up to do that chopping. So set yourself up, have the cutting board there, and then just get at it. But, before you do that, so you're setting up your station. I really want to walk you through. I know I'm getting like really granular here, but I want to make sure that you're understanding all these little efficiencies that can add up. So I have the cutting board, I have the knife. Now I get my trash bowl and or compost and have that sitting right there. And then I get all of the containers I need for the vegetables I'm going to chop. So that way, when you go in to start chopping, instead of spending 15, maybe 20 minutes chopping because I pick up a vegetable, I go to wash it, I cut it, then I have to go and throw away or discard the items I'm not using. Then I get a container and I put it away. No, you sit down and you chop and you already have your trash bowl there. You already have your container there. So once you start chopping, it's so efficient because you have everything out that you need. So again, those things are having the trash can or compost, having your containers sitting right there. Like all of this makes a big difference. And it kind of wears you down less too, because you're just sitting there, you get through all your chopping, you're like, oh, now I'm done. And you don't feel frantically running around trying to, chop the next thing. So I would say just having a chopping, I feel like this whole episode is just how to be really efficient with a chopping session, which may sound silly, but it really does make a difference in terms of making sure your meal prep is super efficient. And if you're doing that for your week or even 2 or 3 days, then the next night you don't have to do any chopping at all. You don't even have to pull out your cutting board. You don't have to wash anything. So it really does add up over time. And I can't stress this enough. It really makes a difference. So another area that I have on here that I wanted to talk about with efficiency is shopping. doing your food shopping. So how many times do you food shop right now? Is it once a week? Is it twice a week? Is it 3 times a week? So really evaluating that. And I think this actually could be a whole episode. I won't make it a whole episode right now. Maybe in the future I will, but like really looking at how many times are you doing your grocery shopping, and is there a way you could eliminate one of those shopping trips? Or like, is there a way you can take it from a shopping trip to ordering online or having your groceries delivered? Or, if you're in a season of life where you're really busy with work, could you have someone else? So I have a virtual assistant, and I will sometimes have her, I will make the list and she will put in the order for me. And I know might sound like, well, you're already putting together the list. Like, how does that save time? But it really does, right? Like when you are doing your grocery shopping online, it still takes, 15, 20 minutes, and you're having to make a lot of decisions, right? Like, and if you're already working and making a bunch of decisions, it's like all of the things that go into making your meals are just more decisions that you're adding on to your day. And that is why, that's really the reason why we've created Prep Dish, is to like take away so many decisions. If you use the Prep Dish plan, you can just use our grocery list, put that directly into like your, grocery delivery. And you don't have to think about like, oh, what do I want this week? Do we want, what sort of vegetable do we want? No, you just like follow the list and do that. So really trying to take away all of those decisions. I feel like even just like eliminating decisions can make your life more efficient, going back to the topic of today's episode. So are there ways that you can make your grocery shopping and purchasing more efficient? So one would be to, cut back on the number of shopping trips or sessions that you have in a week. Two would be evaluating like how you're doing that shopping. Are you doing it online? Are you doing pickup? Are you doing delivery? Because those things can help save time and make them more efficient. And even just like where you're shopping, right? Like the location that you shop at, some are more efficient than others. And so just really thinking through like your grocery purchases overall. I know for me, like doing a bulk purchase of all of my meat, like kind of once a quarter, really helps then throughout those next few weeks, things to be a lot more efficient. Cause I'm like, okay, protein is taken care of. Now I just need to like, make sure that I have all of my, fresh items, mainly my vegetables. Because now if you listen back, and I'm still doing Costco, I don't have a full kind of routine dialed in as much as I could just yet. But back, I think in the early spring, I talked about my first ever trip to Costco, and we have still been going occasionally and still kind of figuring out how to make that part of the process to make things more efficient. So I'll keep you posted when I come up with a system there. But that really does help for sure. And then another big thing to do with efficiency and meal prep is make sure you have time set aside so that you can really do it properly. Like it's almost like by having an hour set aside, when you do it, it takes less time. Whereas if you're like, oh, maybe I can do it now, and this time just popped up, let me see if I can do it, but you're hectic. And then maybe you don't sit aside a few minutes up front to be like, okay, how do I like want to tackle this? You just kind of go into it mindlessly. So if you set aside time, I find you're a little more intentional with that time. And when you're more intentional, you're just more efficient. One thing that I do that helps a lot to help it be more efficient is I do it when I'm already in the kitchen. And I've talked about this before, but like I use Sunday lunch as an example. As I'm preparing our lunch for Sunday, I do chopping for lunch, and then I do all of my chopping for my meal prep for the week. And then when lunch is over, I maybe mix up a few more dressings or marinades or whatever else is left for meal prep. And then I clean up the kitchen, and I'm cleaning up the kitchen from lunch, but I'm also cleaning up the kitchen from my meal prep session. So it's kind of like I'm tying it in and just adding one more efficiency there by having one less kitchen cleanup because I'm doing it all at once. And then one other thing I had on my list to talk about with efficiency, and this is one I would challenge you to think about, not just with meal prep, but like kind of anywhere in your life, but a place for everything and everything in its place. So do you have a place for everything and everything in its place in your kitchen? Because if not, then I can guarantee that those meal prep sessions are not as efficient as they could be, right? Like if you are spending time, wait, where's the can opener? Where did I put the knife? Like, is there anything in your kitchen that does not have a home? And if not, like maybe setting aside some time to doing that could really help speed things up when you are in your kitchen. So this is true of meal prep or just like throwing together dinner on a Wednesday night. If everything in your kitchen has a place, then you're going to be way more efficient with your time, but you're not going to be spending time looking for things. So that might have just opened a big can of worms right at the end of the episode, but that's something to think about because that can really help with keeping things moving along efficiently when you're in your kitchen, is making sure there's a place for everything and that everyone knows where that's at. Okay, that is all I have for this week. If you would like to try out our meal plans, again, you can go to prepdish.com/MPM. That's short for Meal Prep Monday, and try out the service for 2 weeks. We set you up. We have your meal prep set up as efficient as possible. The grocery list is very efficient. It's even separated out by grocery store department. So if you're going in person, you're really going to get in and out as efficiently as possible. And if you just want to try out one free week, you can text the number 33777 and the word meal prep, all one word, and we'll just send you 1 week. Whereas the prepdish.com/MPM is a full 2-week trial. So 2 different ways to try us out. That is all I have for this week. One other thing I do want to mention is if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you have not left a rating and a review, would you mind today doing that? Just taking some time, leaving a review or at least a rating. That just really helps people to find this podcast and helps get Meal Prep Monday on the radar. So I would appreciate that so much. Okay, great. Thank you. And I will see you again next week.